Welcome back to A1 Storyteller, where real talk meets powerful storytelling. Every week, we dive deep into the raw, emotional, and jaw-dropping moments that reveal what's really going on behind the scenes of society. If you think you've heard it all, think again, because today's story, it will shake you to your core. So sit tight, grab some water, and keep your eyes wide open. It was a warm Saturday morning in downtown Atlanta. The birds chirped lazily, the sidewalks filled with the usual buzz of weekend shoppers, and everything seemed just a little slower than usual. Angela Wright, an 8-month pregnant black woman, stood in the produce aisle of Harris Market, debating between Granny Smith or Honeycrisp apples. She looked radiant, her belly round, her curly hair tied up in a neat puff, and her smile lighting up her face. To anyone watching, she was just another woman running errands before her baby arrived. But Angela wasn't just anyone. She was Judge Angela Wright, the youngest, most respected, and most feared federal judge in Georgia. Her courtroom was notorious for being a no-nonsense chamber where racism, police brutality, and corruption met their match. But outside the robe and the gavel, she preferred anonymity. She didn't need a detail. She didn't walk with an entourage. She believed that justice wasn't about distance. It was about being connected to the people. And that's why she liked to do her own grocery shopping. Officer Brandon Doyle, a 6-year veteran of the Atlanta Police Department, was parked outside Harris Market sipping on a convenience store coffee that tasted like cardboard. His eyes scanned the area with lazy disinterest until he noticed Angela walking out with 2 paper bags. Something about her made him pause. A black woman, alone, pregnant, no man in sight, walking confidently. That alone was enough to twist his already poisoned mind. The seed of racism in Doyle wasn't new. It had been growing for years, watered by years of unchecked power, internal department bias, and a sick addiction to control. He stepped out of his cruiser slowly, hand instinctively grazing the butt of his pistol, even though no threat had been posed. He walked up behind Angela. "Mom, can I speak with you for a second?" Angela turned, startled but polite. "Is there a problem, officer?" He squinted. "I need to see your receipt." "I beg your pardon?" "You heard me. That bag looks heavy. Making sure you didn't forget to pay." Angela blinked. "Oh, he paid at the register. You're welcome to ask the cashier." I said, "Show me the receipt." The volume in his voice went up. His hand moved closer to his weapon. Angela, instinctively cautious, gently reached into her purse. "I'm just grabbing it." But before she could finish the sentence, Doyle lunged. He yanked her purse, spun her around, and slammed her belly first into the hood of his cruiser. A scream tore from Angela's throat. The scene outside Harris Market was calm just moments ago, but now it felt like an earthquake had struck. Angela was struggling, her hands splayed on the hood of the police cruiser, her face twisted in agony, her breath shortened by the crushing pressure on her lower back. The heat from the metal hood burned through her blouse, and her belly, round and full with life, was caught between her and the car. The officer's grip was ironclad, as if restraining a hardened criminal. But Angela Wright was no criminal. Her voice cracked as she screamed. "A plea. You're hurting me. My baby. I'm pregnant." Doyle's expression didn't change. His jaw was set, and his voice was drenched in disdain. I should have thought of that before resisting. Resisting? Angela hadn't moved a muscle in defiance. She hadn't even raised her voice until now. But to Officer Brandon Doyle, her very existence was a threat. Her poise, a challenge. Her words, too confident for a black woman in his eye. From the corner of the parking lot, Maria Delgado, a 26-year-old nurse on her lunch break, froze in place as she saw the encounter escalate. "Oh my God," she whispered to herself. She's pregnant. What is he doing?" Maria ran closer and shouted, "She's pregnant. You're going to hurt her." Doyle shot her a glare. Back the hell up. He kept his knee firmly between Angela's shoulder blades. Angela let out a wheeze that was both a scream and a gasp. Another witness stepped forward, Mr. Han Shen, a retired teacher in his 70s. He didn't shout. He simply lifted his phone and hit record. Sir, Mr. Chen called out with a calm authority only age could give. I'll let her go. She hasn't done anything wrong. You want to get arrested too? Doyle barked, eyes darting between the growing crowd. Mr. Chen didn't budge. You don't look like a man following procedure. You look like a man hiding behind a badge. Doyle's hand twitched toward his weapon. The crowd recoiled, a few people screamed. But Angela, she was the only one who didn't move. She couldn't. Her vision blurred. Her limbs tingled. Her baby wasn't kicking anymore. Her voice, barely above a whisper, pleaded, "Help me. I can't breathe. My baby." The silence that followed was deafening. Her body had gone limp, Doyle finally noticed. Something was wrong, very wrong. He pulled back slightly, lifting his knee from her back. Futsu. Angela's body slumped sideways. "Hey," he muttered, tapping her shoulder. "Get up." She didn't move. Doyle's face twisted in confusion and panic. "Come on, wake up. This ain't how it's supposed to go." Maria dropped to her knees beside her, furious now. Few didn't even call an ambulance. "What's wrong with you?" Sirens wailed in the distance. Responders had been called by multiple witnesses. But even as the squad cars and medics arrived, Doyle stood frozen. His hands were shaking. He still hadn't realized what he'd done. He hadn't just assaulted a pregnant woman. He'd killed one. He'd killed one. And soon, the world would know who she really was. The emergency team raced in with stretchers and defibrillators, trying desperately to revive Angela. Medics worked furiously as onlookers stood in a stunned silence. Blood stained the edge of the cruiser where Angela's body had been pressed. One paramedic called in urgently to Grady Memorial Hospital. "We're transporting a pregnant woman. Trauma arrest. Suspected respiratory failure. Full code." A medic turned to the crowd. "Who is she? Do any of you know her name?" Maria stepped forward, her voice shaking. "She said her name was Angela." "That's all I know." The name Angela echoed inside the ambulance, but it would soon echo across every television, phone screen, and radio station in the country. When they reached the hospital, the IR team performed an emergency C-section. The baby girl, miraculously, had a pulse. Had a pulse. Angela, however, was pronounced dead on arrival. The medical examiner later confirmed she had suffered internal bleeding from blunt force trauma. Her lungs were crushed under the weight applied to her back. Had she not been pregnant, she might have had a chance. But the added pressure to her diaphragm and abdomen made survival nearly impossible. By midnight, local news had picked up the story. A pregnant black woman dies in custody following grocery store incident. First, it was reported like a tragedy. But the tone shifted just hours later when a young reporter from Channel 7, Vanessa Keys, broke the story that stunned the nation. Her name was Angela Wright, and she wasn't just a woman out shopping for apples. She was the Honorable Judge Angela J. Wright of the U.S. District Court. The newsroom fell silent. Vanessa continued. She presided over some of Georgia's most high-profile police brutality and corruption cases. She was the youngest black woman ever appointed to her position, and she just died in handcuffs at the hands of a police officer who didn't know who she was. Suddenly, this wasn't just a tragedy. It was an assassination of justice. Doyle's name hit the press the next morning. The body cam footage was mysteriously missing, but the public didn't need it because multiple witnesses, including Maria and Mr. Chen, their footage was raw, emotional, unfiltered. Angela's screams, her pleas, the moment she stopped moving, and the world watched. Hashtags trended for days. #justice for Judge Wright, #say her name, #Black Mothers Matter, #protect black women. Meanwhile, inside the police department, chaos erupted. Chief Rayburn, Doyle's superior, scrambled to do damage control. He didn't know she was a judge. He stammered in a press conference. It was a tragic misunderstanding. Wrong answer. The public outcry only got louder because it wasn't just about who she was. It was about what she represented. And how many black women weren't judges, weren't recognized, and had suffered the same fate, without media coverage, without justice, without a chance. Angela's identity wasn't the problem. The system was. But now, the system was being dragged into the light. Atlanta didn't sleep that night. From the crowded streets of Midtown to the quiet homes of Buckhead, a deep tremor of rage and disbelief passed through the city like a ripple through water. Angela Wright, a federal judge, a mother-to-be, a voice for the voiceless, was dead. And the man responsible? Officer Brandon Doyle, a 6-year APT officer with a thick file of internal complaints and a clean official record. Atlanta? Atlanta was wide awake now. The protest began before the sun even rose. By 6 a.m., hundreds stood outside Atlanta's City Hall. By noon, the numbers swelled into the thousands. Signs filled the air like storm clouds. She was a judge. Not just another hashtag. Your badge ain't a license to kill. A justice for Angela Wright. There was no looting, no fires, no violence, just fury. Organized and focused like never before. College students, activists, nurses, clergy, even senior citizens came together. Angela wasn't just a figurehead. She was one of their own. She had spoken at Spelman, taught part-time at Morehouse, helped expunge records for juveniles caught in the system. She knew the people, and now the people were ready to speak for her. Inside the governor's mansion, panic had taken root. Governor Calvin Braxton, a moderate, camera-polished politician, known for saying a lot and meaning little, paced his office in a panic. His aides tossed him poll numbers and breaking news bulletins. Public trust in the state police was plummeting by the hour. As she was a sitting federal judge, his press secretary whispered, "You have to say something." Governor Braxton sighed, ran his fingers through his graying hair, and stepped up to the podium for a hastily called press conference. "This tragedy has shaken us all," he said, voice hollow. Voice hollow. "We have asked the Department of Justice to launch a federal investigation. We will seek answers." But no one was waiting on him anymore. The people weren't asking for answers. They were demanding accountability. Meanwhile, at AP headquarters, internal affairs was flooded with calls from the media, lawyers, and politicians. Officer Brandon Doyle had been placed on administrative leave, standard protocol. But by noon, he was arrested and taken into custody, not on murder charges, but for his own protection. Because death threats were already rolling in. The video had been viewed over 11 million times in a single day. A man who once swaggered through the department like he was invincible now sat in a cold interrogation room, shaking like a child. His lawyer advised silence, but Doyle couldn't stop talking. I didn't know who she was," he kept saying. But the DA office didn't care who he thought she was, because what he did was enough. Across town, at Grady Memorial Hospital, a miracle fought for her first breath. Angela's baby girl, delivered via emergency C-section, had survived. Barely. She was small, frail, and placed in a neonatal ICU unit, but the doctors called her a fighter. One nurse, with tears in her eyes, whispered as she placed the infant in an incubator, "You're gonna grow up and know who your mama was." They named her Justice Angela Wright Jr. Terrence Wright, Angela's husband, hadn't spoken publicly since the incident. The media tried to reach him. So did every major news outlet in the country. But Terrence, a quiet, broad-shouldered man who once served 2 tours overseas, was silent. Until the day of Angela's vigil. It was held in Woodruff Park. Over 10,000 people showed up, each carrying candles, flowers, and signs with Angela's face printed across them. Serene, powerful, radiant. Terrence stepped onto the stage, baby Justice nestled in a blanket in his arms. His eyes scanned the crowd. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but every word struck like a hammer. "You took her," he began. But what you didn't take is her purpose." He paused. You see, Angela was preparing something. She was working on a case, a big one. She was about to take down a ring of dirty cops tied to a political donor network right here in Georgia. He pulled out a thick brown folder and held it up to the crowd. As she left this with me, murmurs rippled through the crowd. "This isn't just her final case," he said. "It's her revenge." The crowd erupted. The chant began to rise. "Angela, Angela." The next morning, news dropped like a bombshell. Angela Wright had been investigating over a dozen officers, including Brandon Doyle, tied to a secret network of police abuse cover-ups, false arrests, missing body cam footage, internal promotions as rewards for silence. Her death wasn't just tragic. It was convenient for the corrupt. But now the work she left behind was in the public eye, and no one could stop the train that had already left the station. In Washington, D.C., Senator Reva Harmon called for sweeping national police reform, citing Angela's death as the final straw. "Willing black women have to die before you realize our existence is not a threat." The DOJ sent in a federal task force to Atlanta. Prosecutors, black, brown, and white, aligned together to form what they called the Right Justice Committee. They made one promise: we will finish what she started. Angela was gone, but now the entire city was awakened, not to just mourn, but to move, to rise, to fight back, to break the walls of systemic racism brick by brick. And Doyle? He watched it all unfold on a tiny prison television, sitting in solitary confinement. The man who thought he was above the law now stared at a world that no longer feared his badge, because now it belonged to Angela. Even in death, she was the one delivering judgment. The people didn't want silence anymore. They didn't want press conferences or thoughts and prayers. They wanted justice, and it was coming. Brandon Doyle's arrest had shocked the nation, but no one expected what came next: a fast-tracked federal indictment. The pressure from the media, the protests, and Angela's high-profile background had forced the system to move. The Department of Justice charged Doyle with civil rights violations, manslaughter, and unlawful use of force, resulting in death. But that wasn't all, because when investigators reviewed Judge Wright's sealed files, they found exactly what she had been working on: a case that linked Doyle to a corrupt network of officers that covered up violent encounters and received payouts from private security firms and developers looking to clean out the neighborhoods of undesirables. Angela had them on paper. She had emails, bank transfers, and hidden testimonies. Her death had kicked open a door she'd been trying to unlock for years. The courtroom was packed. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but every seat was filled. Well, on one side sat the people, activists, legal students, mothers, pastors, professors. On the other side, police officials, union reps, and a few stone-faced officers pretending this wasn't personal. In the middle sat Doyle, his orange jumpsuit a far cry from his once pristine uniform. He looked hollow. And when Terrence Wright entered the courtroom carrying baby Justice in a white blanket, the entire room stood in silence. The prosecution team laid it out clearly. This was not just excessive force, the lead prosecutor said, voice ringing through the chamber. This was hate. This was abuse of power. This was a man who believed his badge gave him the right to act as judge, jury, and executioner. But he forgot something important. The real judge was her. The defense tried every trick in the book. He feared for his life. She was aggressive. We didn't know she was pregnant, but every witness, every video, every expert shattered those lies into dust. And when the medical examiner took the stand, her voice steady, she gave the jury one chilling line. If he'd backed off even 60 seconds earlier, she and the baby might still be alive. The room went silent. It took just 4 hours for the jury to come back. Guilty. Once charges, Brandon Doyle didn't react, but the crowd outside did. A roar echoed through the streets of Atlanta. Angela had spoken even in death. The trial was over, but Angela Wright's mission had just begun. 3 days after the verdict, the President of the United States signed a new bill, the Wright Act, legislation aimed at strengthening federal oversight of local police departments, requiring mandatory body cam uploads within 24 hours, banning chokeholds and knee restraint techniques, and creating a national database of police misconduct records. Angela's name was now in every textbook, every courtroom, and every lecture on constitutional law. Spelman College created the Judge Angela Wright Law Scholarship, offering full rides to Black women pursuing justice careers. The University of Georgia renamed its legal clinic after her, and the old police training facility in East Atlanta, it was shut down and replaced with the Angela J. Wright Justice Center. Training program focused on de-escalation and civil rights education. But her most powerful legacy, her daughter, Justice Angela Wright Jr., though still too young to understand the world she was born into, became a symbol, a spark. People came from every state just to see her at community events. She doesn't have her mother's voice yet, Terrence would say, smiling down at her. But one day, she'll roar. Angela's close friend, attorney Cassandra Bloom, stood on the courthouse steps during the First of Justice for Wright annual march and said, "Angela planted a seed in this city, and now, we're the forest growing from her fire." 2 years have passed since the city of Atlanta erupted in protest, mourning the death of Judge Angela Wright, a Black pregnant woman, federal judge and beacon of justice, gunned down by a cop too blind with hate to see her humanity. But her death wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Atlanta today, the city that once trembled beneath corruption, now stood taller, changed, weathered, and stronger than before. It was visible in the streets, in the policies, in the energy of the people. Murals of Angela Wright stretched across brick walls downtown, painted with angel wings and court gavels. Graffiti artists tagged her name next to the word justice in bold black letters. The courthouse where she once presided had been renamed in her honor. The Honorable Angela Wright Federal Justice Center. The courtroom door she used to walk through now held a quote carved in steel. "I don't fear your bullets. I fear a world where silence wins." Inside that same courthouse, her husband Terrence stood at the back of the courtroom. No longer hollowed out by grief, he now wore purpose like a suit of armor. And he had since completed law school in her honor and now worked with the Wright Foundation, providing legal defense for families wronged by police brutality. But today, he wasn't in court for a case. He was here for justice. His daughter, Justice Angela Wright Jr., she was only 2 years old, but already the world had fallen in love with her. Her eyes carried the same intensity her mother had. Her curly hair was pinned up with a tiny pink bow. On her small wrist, she wore a silver bracelet engraved with one word, a power. Terrence kneeled beside her as they walked through the courthouse. "Daddy," she said in her tiny voice. "Are we going to see Mommy?" Terrence smiled gently. "In a way, baby girl. Mommy's everywhere now." He lifted her up and walked through the grand rotunda of the courthouse, now decorated for the second annual Wright Justice Gala, an event that had become national in scope. It celebrated civil rights leaders, activists, and young voices challenging injustice across America. And this year, the keynote wasn't a senator or a celebrity. It was Angela herself. The video that stopped the room as the lights dimmed, the large screen lit up with Angela's face, radiant, bold, commanding. The room fell into a reverent hush. It was a video no one had seen before, an unreleased clip recorded just days before her death. She sat in her chambers, speaking directly to the camera, eyes piercing through the screen. "If you're watching this," she began, "then something happened to me. Maybe I was taken too soon. Maybe the system I tried to change ended up ending me." She paused, leaned forward. But let me tell you something. If my death can light a fire, let it burn down. Every door built to keep us out. Let it fuel the feet of the marchers. Let it give voice to the silenced. Let my name be more than a tombstone. Let it be a turning point. Tears streamed down faces in the room. Even the toughest prosecutors, the ones hardened by decades in law, had to look away. Angela wasn't just gone. She had left behind a mission and a blueprint for a new kind of justice. Justice marches on across the country. The Wright Act had inspired similar state-level reforms. Cities began investing in non-police response units, community oversight boards, and trauma-informed training. Young black women flooded law schools, citing Angela as their reason for applying. And for every Angela, there were dozens more. Names that never made the news, victims lost to a broken system. But now each of them had a voice. A mural in Chicago read, "Say her name, walk her walk, write her story in stone." In Oakland, a high school renamed itself Angela Wright Academy for Social Justice. In Atlanta, children played at Angela's Park, a once-forgotten lot transformed into a garden, court, and open library. Terrence's speech back at the gala, Terrence stepped on stage with justice in his arms. The crowd stood, clapping, many wiping tears. Justice grabbed at the microphone, babbling cheerfully. Terrence chuckled. She's already trying to speak like her mama. Then his voice dropped into something deeper, something powerful. My wife's blood is in this soil. Her truth is in these walls. But let me be clear, Angela Wright didn't die for a hashtag. She died because someone feared a black woman with a voice, with a womb. With a gavel in one hand and fire in the other, the room went silent. They feared her, and now they fear us because her story became our mission. He looked down at his daughter. One day, Justice will grow up and read about what happened. And when she does, I want her to know she didn't just survive. She inherited a revolution. The crowd erupted in applause. The final scene later that night, Terrence walked with Justice through the city streets. The skyline twinkled. In the distance, the golden statue atop the Georgia State Capitol glowed like a guardian. As they passed a mural of Angela, Justice pointed. "Mama," she said. Terrence froze. He turned slowly. It was the first time she'd ever said the word. He knelt beside her. "Yes, baby. That's Mama. And she's proud of you." Justice placed her tiny hand on the wall. And in that moment, surrounded by the city her mother helped transform, the spirit of Angela Wright lived on in the most powerful way, through remembrance, through legacy, through her daughter. Oh, her daughter. This has been A1 Storyteller, where truth hits harder than fiction. They thought killing her would end the fight. They thought silence would bury her legacy. But Angela Wright was never just a name. She was a mother, a warrior, a judge who carried justice in her heart and fire in her soul. And now, even in death, she moves through every courtroom where fairness reigns, every street where people chant for change, and every little black girl who dares to dream of power. This wasn't just a story, it was a reckoning. And if you felt even a spark of her fire, if your heart pounded as justice rose from the ashes, then don't let it stop here. Like, comment, share, subscribe, because her story is not the last. It's a warning. It's a revolution. And you, yes, you, are part of the movement now. This is A1 Storyteller, and we don't just tell stories, we ignite legacies.